Okay, I think we're good. I can see it says we're now streaming, so I think we're good to go. Welcome everybody. This is our 2 o'clock session, and we're very fortunate today to be with the head brewer of Birmingham Brewing Co. So this is Matt. Everyone, thank you, Matt,
Hello.
for joining us
Yeah,
today. So this is a really exciting one for me because we were in the launch session on Thursday night. We were talking about Birmingham Brewing Co. And actually, like, it was a bit of a first for me because I didn't know of them too much. And I really carefully, I went through my Untapped. I was like, have I had anything? And I haven't. But you guys have been around quite a few years now, since 2016. So first of all, Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what took you to Birmingham Brewing Co.
I'm originally not from Birmingham, so I'm not a Brummie myself. I'm supposed a bit of an honorary Brummie. I'm from Stockport, just up near Manchester, up north. But I came to Birmingham about, would have been seven or so years now. When I was a student, went to the University of Birmingham. I did ancient history there. And whilst I was there, I learnt to homebrew because as an ancient historian, it's a lot of sitting around in your flat reading old books. And all of my friends they're now doctors, but they're all medical students at the time. So I decided, whilst I was holding down the fort at home, I'd brew beer for us all. Ended up getting quite good at it. And then I went up and did a master's in brewing and distilling up at Heriot Watt. Then after that, returned to Birmingham. That was just over 3 years ago now. Been the head brewer ever since.
Incredible. So you clearly have a real passion for brewing, and it's a bit of a hobby that's kind of escalated into a career.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is amazing. So let's dive in. So tell us about this beer that we're with today. So this is a sober Brummie, right? I've got mine poured here. You've got yours there. Talk to us about this beer then. How did it come about? And what does that brewing process look like for AF and for this particular beer?
Yeah. So basically, with our beers, all of our beers are vegan and gluten-free and have been pretty much since the start of the brewery. Definitely since I started. It was something that the owner, Paul, started very early in the process. And essentially that's because we wanted our beer to always be accessible to as many people as possible. It's both just good business sense. You want to sell the most amount of beer to the most amount of people, but also, we want to share what we love about beer with as many people as we can. So it just really made sense for us. We've got people who can't have certain findings. So we got the vegans, they're in. People who can't have gluten, they're in. And then we were like, well, we also want to share our love of beer with people who, don't drink alcohol for whatever reason, be it, health, religion, whatever. So we'd always wanted to make an alcohol-free beer, and pretty much we'd been working on Sober Brummie for the best part of the 3 years that I've been at the brewery. We've tried all sorts of different methods. We're not quite big enough to do all of the sort of crazy reverse osmosis or all that sort of stuff. So it's taken us a while to nail our exact process. But luckily we got there in the end. And it's essentially, it's just to do with using different techniques in the brewing process and different yeasts and things like that to essentially brew beer in a normal way, but without it producing the alcohol it normally would.
Yeah.
And we're really pleased with how it's come along, and it seems to be quite popular.
Yeah, like it seems like a very good time to have made that beer. And I think the thing that I was really impressed by when I was looking through the website was, as you mentioned, as a business, you're really socially conscious. So you really think about where your waste goes. I think there's a percentage of the sales of this particular beer that goes to supporting the
Yes.
Air Ambulance. The fact that you're gluten-free, you support vegans, like that all of that is incredible. When you were in the process of creating an AF beer, I mean, for you personally, what had been your experience of AF beer up until the point where you were happy to then create this one?
So I tried a few of the big popular ones, like the not the Punk AF from Brewdog, the one they had before that, the Nanny State.
Yeah, no,
that was pretty good.
Yeah.
And I tried a couple of the big drop ones. They're nice. But aside from the few ones which have got a bit more attention in the beer community, you've got sort of like the more macro alcohol-free beers.
Yeah.
And I remember me and my friends, I had some friends around, this was quite a few years ago now. And one of them, he had just got his first car. He was driving. So we were all on the beers and he was like, you know what? I want to join you, but I can't because I'm driving. I'm going to get some alcohol-free beer. And we were like, okay, fair enough. So we went to the shops with him. He picked some up. We got it back, and it was atrocious. It just tasted like unfermented wort that had been carbonated. I remember drinking it and thinking, there's got to be something better than this.
Yeah.
This is terrible.
Yeah.
I won't name the brand. I can't even remember it. I think it was some like European lager brand or something. And it was just, yeah. And ever since then, I've always been like, it would be great just to have an alcohol-free beer that actually tastes both good and just like beer.
Yes.
Would be a start, you know. So yeah, it wasn't. It was mixed to say the least. But now I think there's some really good options out there, and we're really proud to have one which we think is also a good option.
Yeah, absolutely. I think lots of us will recognise that kind of like journey that you described there, and you know, I know the first time I ever tried a alcohol-free beer, and like yourself, I was pretty nonplussed about it. I was like, oh god, you know. But I suppose part of me was like relieved there was one in the pub, but equally, like yourself, thinking with how much craft beer had kind of come along, and like, how come like that hadn't happened to AF beer? But I've been so impressed in the last couple of years with how it's really, really kind of stepped up. So so this is a real treat actually. So with that in mind, so I mean, obviously we've been, you know, the world has been kind of closed for a year.
Yes.
How has that kind of impacted the kind of brewing processes at Birmingham? And like, what do you see in the kind of year ahead? What's the kind of plan in the year ahead for your brewery?
So for us, we were like a lot of breweries, I think, very, very worried at the start. You know, it was sort of, am I going to have a job in a few weeks' time? Is there going to be some sort of furlough situation? You know, no idea what's going on. But luckily for us, we had just at the start of lockdown, just invested, not invented, we didn't make it. It just invested in a new canning line.
Okay.
Fancy automatic one.
Yeah.
So what we did is essentially just really double down on our canning. And part of that was the release of Sober Brummie in cans with the charity link with the air ambulance as well. Yeah. And doing things like that essentially. So lots of releases of limited editions and new styles, and without a lot of the pressure from the pubs to just produce as much sort of like of our standard like pale ale and things. We had a little bit more room to play about, and that did lead to us perfecting Sober Brummie, which is, you know, a silver lining, I suppose. Well, absolutely. And as you say, it's, you know, there's a whole load of customers you may not have been able to tap into before, that may not drink for a variety of different reasons that now can. And so talk us through, so what should we be kind of tasting and things with this particular beer? I know it's kind of, I'm getting citrus. Yeah.
What should we kind of be picking up in this pale ale?
So with this beer, we've essentially done, it's a fairly simple grain bill. So it's pretty much, it's like 98% pale malt, with a small amount of caramel malt for a bit of sort of sweetness, so it doesn't go too dry. And then a bit of wheat and a bit of oats for sort of like mouthfeel and things like that. Because, you know, with alcohol-free beer, you want to make sure it doesn't go too thin and watery. So to combat that, we've added a bit more of the oats and things just to give it that like creaminess.
Yeah.
And then, Yeah.
Really interesting. You mentioned about the oats. I can't remember the name of it now, but there was another AF beer I had around January time that when I looked into it, it did have quite a high kind of like oaty content, and it definitely gave it more body. And that you're quite right. That kind of thin wateriness is very prevalent within certain lagers, isn't it? And it's just I'm a big Belgian beer enthusiast, and I went on my quest for AF beer. I imported a load of Belgian AF beers, and I found some that were really sadly very disappointing, but I found a couple that were not. And I think the Sport Zot was one that I thought was really good, because again, it's still got the body of a beer, which is what you're looking for, isn't it, really? So no, really, really impressed with this. So I think it's absolutely fantastic. So I think one of the things I really liked when I was looking at your website is that you've kept the branding really like uniform, like the sober Brummie sits in really neatly with the rest of your kind of core beers. Was that like an intentional thing?
Yeah, so with all of our beers, except from the lagers, which so we've got our Sturchley lager, but all of our ales are something Brummie, and that's something we've done from the start, and we really wanted Sober Brummie just to fit in with that. We didn't want to make it a wildly different thing, because I think a big part for us of making the alcohol-free beer, and the reason people drink alcohol-free beer, is because when you're out with your mates at the pub or at the local brewery tap room and you're trying all the beers and stuff, like us beer nerds do, you don't want it to be, one person's got the lager, one person's got the pale ale, one person's trying the stout or some sour or something, and then you're just there sort of on your own with sort of, whatever the other option is. You want to be like part of that. So by making Sober Brummie just another one of our beers that happens to be alcohol free, then for us that sort of helps with that, really.
That's a really, really important point, I think. And I think when I was on the very first the AF Beer Awards, actually back in late December, somebody on one of those calls kind of called out how important branding is, and that particularly with craft beer, people don't just pick up a can. There's a big thought process in that. Do you identify with the brand? Do you identify with the label? And as you say there, you want to, like, human like nature, isn't it, is to kind of like blend in actually and kind of do what feels normal. And sitting there with a label that's like bright blue, zero like alcohol, like, can still make you feel a bit kind of isolated when you're with your friends and stuff. So I think I really like that. But do you know, and I don't know in Birmingham Brewing Co who does your branding, but do you know what the logo kind of means that's on all of the cans?
Yes, I do. So essentially, if you see here, we've got so it's a crest that's to represent Birmingham. So we've got anyone who's been to Birmingham or familiar with Birmingham might recognise these elements. Although a lot of people we get in our tap room, for example, lived in Birmingham all their lives, and only after we explain it does it like dawn on them. So we've got the Selfridges there are connected to the bull ring. So don't know if you've seen that, the big sort of like silver balls all over the giant Selfridges building in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Then we've got here the Birmingham Library. That was the one opened by Malala a few years back with the sort of concentric circles.
Yeah.
It's a big cool geometric design. And then in the middle, we've got like the sort of slanted roofs of the sort of industrial estates, symbolising Birmingham's industry. So I like to say that it symbolises the commerce, industry and knowledge of the city of Birmingham. Sort of my kind of highfalutin way of describing the logo. It's just a fun logo.
I think that it looks really, really good. And I haven't been up to Birmingham for a couple of years actually, but when I was last there, there were kind of more kind of craft beer places kind of cropping up. I could see that was happening, and quite a bit of regeneration happening around the town centre. But I know that you folks are kind of situated just a little outside, aren't you, of Birmingham Centre?
Yeah.
So how have you been? Have you lots of kind of independent pubs or places stocking your stocking your beer? They're quite, you know, on board and wanting to go and stock you.
Yeah, so I mean, when I first came to Birmingham Brewing Company three or so years ago, I was it was kind of an anomaly, because I remember being there a couple of years before that as a student, and sort of, you know, you'd go into the city centre for your nightclubs and a couple of bars and stuff, and then the suburbs and stuff surrounding Birmingham, unless it was a very studenty area, there wasn't much really. There was, you know, your standard local pubs and things, but there wasn't like really a craft beer scene. And then joined Birmingham Brewing Company, and then after that, more and more places started popping up, and a lot of it centred around Sturchley, which is the village in the sort of South Birmingham suburbs where we're based, and that's where a lot of the Birmingham craft beer scene is now focused. There and Digbeth, which is also in the city centre. But out of those two centres, there's a lot of it, and yeah, we're all, you know, we sort of, it's fun. We know everyone in Birmingham. All the Birmingham beer people know all the Birmingham beer people. So all of the local bottle shops or small independent bars and things will have our beer. A lot of our beer we sell to restaurants as well.
Amazing.
So a lot of the Birmingham sort of like foodie scene, we're in there as well. We're also in Morrison's at the moment.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So managed to get into Morrison's, and you know, things like that. So we're always expanding.
It's really interesting because I mean, Morrison's have really kind of, you know, upped their game in the last year or so. I'm a member of this supermarket craft beer forum on Facebook, rather lively bunch. But Morrison's have been recognised in the last kind of 6 months in particular for kind of breaking out a bit. So I think we're one of the first people trying to start stocking Vocation, but they're great, you know, if they're stocking you guys as well, that's absolutely amazing, because that's what you need, isn't it? Is that almost word of mouth, get out there a bit more. So I've got a great question here. So any further plans for other AF beers in the future? So we've got Sober Brummie, but is Sober Brummie going to have a brother or sister at some point?
Well, I think I've not actually discussed it with the owner yet. Me and him have not really talked about it. So, you know, I might get talking to on Tuesday if I promise anything now. But I mean, there's nothing to say we wouldn't. You know, if people are asking for it, the process that we use to make Sober Brummie could easily be used to make a sober lager, a sober alcohol-free stout. You know, it's not limited to the style. We obviously just started with a pale ale because it's the most popular sort of style at the moment. So yeah, if there's attention for it, I can see no reason that we wouldn't. Although maybe too early to promise anything just yet.
I think, as you say, I mean, when did this beer get released? Was it 2020? Did it come out?
Yes, it was 2020. It was, I want to say mid 2020. It's very difficult to tell. The last 12 months,
a bit of a blur.
Just a mush.
Yeah. So in many respects, you know, until, I mean, you guys, you know, hopefully will be able to reopen, you know, from tomorrow, and your and things, which would be incredible. So I suppose that this, you know, the months ahead really are going to gauge the interest, aren't they, and the demand, and you'll get to see how many people pick up on it. In the conversations over the sessions this weekend, it's been really interesting hearing different, not just AF focused breweries, but like breweries that, like yourselves, that have gone and made the effort to make an AF beer, say that, you know, one of the kind of key next steps for them is to, can we get it on keg, or, you know, can we get it on draft, and have it there as a standalone option for our customers when they come and see us. And I mean, do you think that's something that might happen, seeing how it goes?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have in our tap room, when we were first developing the Sober Brummie, we were serving it in keg and things, our pilot batches and stuff. And yeah, like I said, as with trying sort of Sober Brummie in different styles, because there's no stage of the process which is additional to our normal brewing process. Essentially, just an altering certain parts of our brewing process we already have. It's just as easy for us to put it into kegs and cask as it would be into cans. So when we reopen our tap room, I'm assuming we will be serving some sober Brummie in keg. And once we've brewed some more.
You've got a busy few weeks ahead then.
Definitely. We've actually just got a series of 6 new tanks that were 3 times the size of the ones we previously had. So that's a lot of tanks to fill. So hopefully we'll be filling some of them with some sober Brummie in the near future. But definitely getting it out there as one of our offerings, not just in can, is definitely something we're.
I think that is the kind of thing that more that people see AF beer like everywhere. Becomes more normalized, doesn't it? And allows people just to pick that as an option as they would anything else. So I think that sounds really good. Aside from this beer that you've brewed, which is lovely, if you were picking some AF beers that you really liked, you thought they're really good, they're a nice benchmark, what would you pick? What have been some of your favourites?
Now, I really like. So, firstly, I quite like Brewdog's Nanny State.
Yeah.
I've yet to try their Punk AF, and I would like to try that next.
Yeah.
I'm always looking to try more of Big Drops ones.
Yeah.
With the sort of alcohol-free beer scene, another thing I really like, and I know you've had these guys on this weekend, is the Cloudwater, hopped soda.
So they're on at 3:00.
They're
coming up next. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I'll be watching that after this then. So when I tried that, I really, really enjoyed those. And definitely want to try more of them. And another thing I'd like to try, which once again, another thing I've not really tried, mainly because aside from my own beer at work, my beer consumption, due to the lack of socializing available currently, has been much more limited than in previous years. I would be curious to try some of the sort of as much as I'm ashamed to admit it, as a craft brewer, I am a massive fan of lager. That's my favourite beer style.
That's all right. No shame here.
And I think it would be interesting to see the big macro lager producers. I know a lot of them have brought out alcohol-free beer in the past year or two.
Yeah.
Sort of catching up with the trend, which I think, to craft beer's credit, we sort of got the forward thrust of.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think trying some of them would be interesting. See how they hold up.
I really agree with you, because I almost wondered, I tried for a long, as part of me starting out on a bit of an AF journey, and I still drink regular beer as well. I tried all of the lagers, so your Beck's Blue, your Heineken Zero, not bad. So I've given them all a good try, and I have been surprised that considering the money and the capital that those businesses have, that they haven't necessarily recognised the market and how big it's grown.
Definitely.
But secondly, have not been able to kind of pack their beer with as much flavour as some of the independent craft breweries have been able to do. But I really noticed something you said earlier in the conversation, which is, Sober Brummie has been a 3-year project to get to that point. And most people we've spoken to over this weekend have said the same thing, that the R&D and the investment in, you don't want to stick it out half-baked. You don't want to stick it out not being as good as it could possibly be. And I think I really respect that. And like you, I love a lager too. I really, on a hot day, sometimes you just want a pint of lager, and that's all good. But that's a really interesting take on it. So it'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, see what happens. Lovely. I don't know if we have any other questions in the chat. We may not. Oh no, we're all good. Yeah, lovely. Like Matt, thank you so much for like spending your afternoon off with us and talking us through Sober Brummie. It's a lovely beer. And next time, you know, I'm allowed to leave Reading and go up to Birmingham, then they're definitely a place I'm going to check out. I've been really impressed with the website. Love the ethos behind Birmingham Brewing Co. I think they're fantastic. So can't wait to try more of your beer. And this is brilliant, and it's another great effort to, you know, add to the AF beer world as we're all trying to grow. So thank you for brewing such a lovely beer, and thanks for speaking with us. Love it.
Excellent, brilliant. Thank you so much.